How are you guys doing? It is Friday, August 7th, 2020, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I was going to go into the really exciting day of sports yesterday, especially in baseball and in basketball. Had a lot of games go down to the wire, a lot of very elite performances, and I'm just going to try to get into it real quick. So just to jump into it, the first game of the match had the Pittsburgh Pirates getting their third win of the season as they beat the Minnesota Twins in the ninth inning off of a walk-off single by pinch hitting Kevin Newman. With this win, the Pirates are now sitting at 3-10 as the Twins fall to 10-3. Moving on to the next one in the Central, the Cleveland Indians were able to completely demolish the Reds 13-0 in 9 innings as they scored 10 runs in the seventh. Best hitting performance of the day probably went to Jose Ramirez, who finished 3 for 5 with 4 RBIs and 4 runs, including an RBI triple, and he hit 2 home runs on the day. You won't see many hitting performances like that ever. Cleveland Indians had a great game. Carlos Carrasco would strike out 8 in 6 innings, only allowing 1 hit to the Cincinnati Reds. With this win, the Cleveland Indians are now 8-6 as the Reds now fall back to 5-8. Moving on, the Kansas City Royals were able to get a rare one on the Cubs as they were able to beat them 13-2 following a 6-run third that put them up by 9 after the first 3. Really good pitching performance by their starter, by Brad Keller. He struck out 7 in 5 innings, and pretty big game for them. Going to the Cubs side, their third baseman, Chris Bryant, would finish 0 for 2, and he would eventually get subbed out. Javi Baez, their shortstop, would finish 1 for 2, and he'd strike out for the day. With this, the Cubs fall to 10-3, and the Kansas City Royals are now 4-10. I'm looking out to the other AL-NL matchup because the St. Louis Cardinals and the Tigers are postponed. The Brewers were able to get a quick win on the Chicago White Sox, 8-3, as they had 2 really big innings where the White Sox just simply couldn't come back. Christian Yelich finished 1 for 2 with an RBI and 3 runs. He was walked 4 times, and he had an inside the park home run in the 5th inning. That'll probably go down as one of the best highlights of his career. Great game. With this win, the Brewers are now 5-5, and the White Sox now slip to 7-6. And then I'm just gonna take you guys out west first, starting with the AL-NL matchup. The Diamondbacks were able to get a good one on the Astros as Cole Calhoun was able to hit a RBI double down the line in the 9th inning while the bases were loaded to give the Diamondbacks their 5th win of the season. And now the Astros slipped to 6-6 with that loss. Kind of well needed, but I guess something slipped. Going to the National League West, the Rockies were able to get a good win on the Giants as they now have 9 wins on the season, beating them 6-4 after a 5-run 5th inning. Their third baseman, Nolan Arenado, would finish 0 for 4. Charlie Blackmon would have a good game. He finished 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his second home run. Trevor Story, the designated hitter, would go 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 5th home run of the season. And with this, the Giants now fall to 6-8. And like I said, the Colorado Rockies are just making a case, trying to get the top spot in the NL West as they're now 9-3. Now moving out to the American League West, the Texas Rangers faced off against the Oakland A's, and the Oakland A's, after a 4-run inning, were able to beat the Rangers 6-4 in total, and now they have 9 wins on the season. They're 9-4, and the Rangers now slip to 3-8. For the A's, Matt Chapman, their third baseman, would finish 0 for 2 with a run. Matt Olson would finish with a home run, his 4th of the season. And with this, the AL West is up for grabs, and here was the other matchup in the AL West as the Angels took on the Mariners, and they were able to get their 5th win of the season off of a really good performance from all the hitters, especially Shohei Ohtani, who hit his 3rd home run off the season as he finished 1 for 3 with 2 runs and an RBI. And with this, the Mariners fall to 5-3, as the Angels are now 5-8. And finally, moving out to the East, just to give you a good sense of what's going on out there. A lot of NL East matchups. First, I'm gonna start with the Yankees and the Phillies. In this game, the Phillies were able to win at home against the Yankees following a 3-run 1st inning and a 2-run 3rd inning. Their right fielder, Bryce Harper, would finish 1 for 2 with 2 runs on the day. Pretty big game for him. For the Yankees, Giancarlo Stanton, their DH, would finish 1 for 4, struck out twice. Gleyber Torres would go 0 for 4. Aaron Judge would pitch hit, but he would go 0 for 1. when in his only at bat of the day. And with this loss, the Yankees are now 9-3, and the Phillies are now 3-4. As they're starting to pick up a little steam, pick up a little momentum, especially with a win against a very good ball club. And next, moving out, the Atlanta Braves are able to take on the Toronto Blue Jays as Nick Markakis would have the play of the game. He would hit a walk-off home run in the ninth in his very first game back after opting out originally, but he decided to come back and join the team. For the Braves, Ronald Acuna Jr., their center fielder, would finish 0-for-3 with a walk. Freddie Freeman would finish 2-for-4 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his second home run of the season. And with Ozzie Albies still out, the Braves were able to get their 9th win of the season as the Blue Jays now fall to 4-6. Vlad Guerrero Jr., the DH, would finish 0-for-4, but he did have an RBI on the day for the Blue Jays. Bo Bichette would hit his first home run of the season as he hit a liner. He was able to get the first run off Touki Toussaint, who had 9 strikeouts for the Braves and almost 7 innings pitched. And last but not least, moving on to the last AL-NL East matchup of the night, the Miami Marlins were able to. They're now 6-1 after an 8-7 win against the Baltimore Orioles. Jesus Aguilar would have a good game, 1-for-3 with a run and an RBI. Villar would hit his first home run of the season. And right now, the Marlins are looking like they might be the hottest team in baseball, especially with how they've been playing. Just great game between both sides, and now the Marlins are sitting at 6-1, and with that, I think they have the best record in the National League East. But just to give you a little bit of sense of what's going on in the standings, I'm starting with the NL East. The Marlins now have the best record in the NL East. They're sitting at 6-1. Half a game behind them are the 9-5 Atlanta Braves. 2.5 games behind the Atlanta Braves are the 4-5 Washington Nationals and the 3-4 Philadelphia Phillies, who are now 3 games behind the Marlins, and 1 game behind them sitting in last are the 5-8 Mets, who are 4 games behind the Marlins in total. Going to the NL Central, the Chicago Cubs are sitting by themselves at the very top with a 10-3 record. 3.5 games behind them are the 5-5 Milwaukee Brewers. Half a game behind them, sitting at 2-3, are the St. Louis Cardinals, who may not play some baseball games for maybe another week. A game behind them are the 5-8 Cincinnati Reds, who are now 5 full games behind the Cubs, and sitting 2 games behind them in last are the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are 7 full games behind the Cubs. Going to the NL West, the Rockies right now sit atop the NL West by themselves. Half a game behind them are the 9-4 Los Angeles Dodgers. 2 games behind them are the 7-6 San Diego Padres, who are now 2.5 games behind the Rockies. A game and a half behind them are the 6-8 San Francisco Giants, who are now 4-0, or who are now 4 games behind the Colorado Rockies. And a half a game behind them, sitting in last, are the 5-8 Arizona Diamondbacks, who are 4.5 games behind the first place Colorado Rockies. Now moving out to the American League, I'll start with the West. The Oakland A's are sitting by themselves, 2.5 games ahead of second place the Houston Astros, who are now 6-6. A game and a half behind the Astros are the 5-8 Los Angeles Angels, who are now 4 games behind the 9-4 Oakland A's. Half a game behind the Angels are the 5-9 Seattle Mariners. They're 4.5 games behind the Oakland A's, and half a game behind the Seattle Mariners are the 3-8 Texas Rangers, who are 5 games behind the Oakland A's. In the AL Central, the Minnesota Twins are sitting at the top by themselves with a 10-3 record. They currently have the most wins in the American League, and 2.5 games behind them are the 8-6 Cleveland Indians. And half a game behind the Indians are the 7-6 Chicago White Sox. Half a game behind the White Sox are the 5-5 Detroit Tigers, who are 3.5 games behind Minnesota. And 3 games behind Detroit are the 4-10 Kansas City Royals, who are 6.5 games behind Minnesota. And last but not least, in the AL East, the New York Yankees sit by themselves 4 games ahead of the rest at 9-3. The Baltimore Orioles at 5-7. The Tampa Bay Rays at 5-7, the Toronto Blue Jays at 4-6 are all 4 games behind the Yankees, all kind of fighting for a position for, I guess, the second spot right there. And a game behind all 3 of them in last place are the 4-8 Boston Red Sox. So that's what's going on, especially with baseball. That's what happened yesterday, but looking forward to what's going on today with Friday baseball. Mostly afternoon. The first game doesn't start till 6 o'clock, but there's big games. Masahiro Tanaka is going to face off against former AL Cy Young Blake Snell at 6:40 as the Yankees take on the Rays. Additionally, I'm going to watch the Atlanta Braves take on the Phillies as Kyle Wright takes on Vince Velasquez. Also, Trevor Bauer is going to make yet another start as they take on the Brewers at 8 o'clock. And it looks like the Cardinals are coming back today as the Chicago Cubs take on the Cardinals. The Cardinals play their 6th game of the season. John Lester will face off against Daniel Ponce de Leon as the Cardinals try to regain their momentum, especially in the league. Zach Greinke's going to make yet another start as they face off against the Oakland Athletics. Especially after after the good start that Chris Bassett has had in his first two starts. So, and in addition to that, the Dodgers are going to play the Giants tonight in their historic rivalry as Jeff Samard is going to face off against Julio Urias. Two really, really good pitchers. But that's what baseball's looking like today. Those are the big games. Now I'm going to move on to basketball, what happened last night. I'm going to start with the bubble game between the Pelicans and the Kings, as the Kings were able to beat the New Orleans Pelicans 140-125. And in the loss, Brandon Ingram would have 24. Zion would also have 24 points. Lonzo Ball would have 9 points and 11 assists. As for the Sacramento Kings, De'Aaron Fox would finish with 30 points and 10 assists. Bogdanovich, the shooting guard for the Kings, would finish with 35 points, shooting 6 for 9 from 3 while shooting 13 for 20 from the field. And in this win, the Sacramento Kings, they are now sitting in the 12th spot. They are currently 2.5 games behind the 8th place Grizzlies, and with this loss, the Pelicans and the Kings now have the same record, as the Pelicans drop below the Kings, and they're now both 2.5 games behind the 8th place Grizzlies, as the Pelicans kind of lost a much needed win. And it looks as though their chances of making the playoffs are looking very grim as of right now. Moving on, the Miami Heat took on the Milwaukee Bucks, and in the Bucks with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Middleton scoring 33 each would help will this team to clinching the number 1 spot in the East. Giannis would also add in 12 rebounds, shooting 13 for 17 from the field. Chris Middleton would shoot 9 for 14 from the field, making all 10 of his free throws. For the Heat, their biggest contributor was Duncan Robinson, who finished with 21 points. Shot 5 for 9 from 3, and then Tyler Hero dropped in 20 off the bench. With this loss, like I said, the Heat are now they're now 2.5 games behind the 3rd place Celtics, and they're 1 game ahead of the Indiana Pacers. And with this win, the Bucks have now clinched the Eastern Conference for the season. They have the best record in the season moving on, and I think from now on they're probably going to rest Giannis and Chris Middleton looking as they look forward to the games ahead, the very few games ahead. All going on to the next game, the Phoenix Suns are now undefeated in the bubble as they were able to beat the Indiana Pacers, the hot Indiana Pacers, they're able to beat them by 15 points. TJ Warren, the bubble MVP, would finish with 16 points and 11 rebounds as he finished shooting 7 for 20 from the field. Malcolm Brogdon would also add in 25 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. But for the Phoenix Suns, well-rounded performance from their starters. Cam Johnson would have 14, Michael Bridges with 10, DeAndre Ayton with 23 and 10. Ricky Rubio had finished with 13 points. Devin Booker finished with 20 points and 10 assists. Big, much-needed win for the Suns. With this loss, first of all, the Pacers are still a game behind the Heat as they had their opportunity to at least tie the Heat in their record. But right now, they're still sitting half a game ahead of the 6th place Philadelphia 76ers. And then with this win, the Phoenix Suns are now 2 games behind the 2nd place Grizzlies, as they are now They're now sitting with the 10th seed in the West, as they've been moving up and they haven't lost a game in the bubble yet. They might make the playoffs. In the next game, the Los Angeles Clippers were able to beat the Dallas Mavericks by 15. They beat them 126-111. On the Dallas Mavericks side, Kristaps Porzingis would drop in 30 points and 9 rebounds. And additionally, Luka Doncic, their elite shooting guard, would finish with 29 points and 6 assists. But in the end, the Clippers came up big. Kawhi Leonard would finish with 29 points on the night, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Zubac would finish with 21 points and 15 rebounds. Big game for him. Paul George would finish with 24 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. With this loss, the Dallas Mavericks are still sitting with the 7th spot in the West, and it looks as though they're now 3 games behind the 6th place Thunder, so they might just be situated in that 7th spot. I don't know if they're going to come close unless the Thunder just start dropping games all of a sudden. But with this win, the Clippers they're still not going to catch the Lakers for first in the West, but they've now given themselves a game and a half of separation between them and the Denver Nuggets. And additionally, moving on, speaking of the Denver Nuggets, as the Clippers were able to win, the Nuggets they fell short to the Portland Trailblazers as they lost 125-115. For the Nuggets, Michael Porter Jr. would be their biggest performer as he finished with 27 points, 12 rebounds, as he shot 10 for 18 from the field, 4 for 7 from the three-point line. His third straight game in the bubble where he scored at least 25 points. I mean, a star is born. What else can I say? Nikola Jokic, their elite center, would only play 24 minutes. He finished with 8 points, 5 rebounds, and 13 assists in those 24 minutes. But once again, it wasn't enough as the Trailblazers only played 8 players. Their biggest performer would be, of course, Damian Lillard, who finished with 45 points, 4 rebounds, 12 assists, shooting 13 for 21 from the field, 11 for 18 from 3. He took 18 3-pointers, but he made 11 of them. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are the only other players with multiple games where they made 11 3-pointers. He also shot 8 for 10 from the free throw line. Big game for him. He was the performer of the night, and he helped wilt this Trailblazers team to a big win that they definitely needed. Another big performance, go Duke. Gary Trent Jr. had 27 points in 36 minutes off the bench, shooting 10 for 15 from the field and 7 for 10 from the 3 line. Big game for him. With this loss, the Denver Nuggets, like I said, they sit a game and a half behind the Clippers, and they now sit a game and a half ahead of the Rockets and the Jazz. It was kind of a win that they needed to see if they could clinch that second spot, but they couldn't pull it off. But it was definitely a bigger win for the Trailblazers as they now move into half a game behind the Grizzlies, as they have a really good chance. They're moving into striking distance, and they can take this playoff spot away from the Grizzlies if they're not careful enough. And the last game of the night happened between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Houston Rockets. LeBron James didn't play for the Los Angeles Lakers as they had clinched the number 1 spot in the West, and they're gonna, of course, he is 35, so they're going to rest him for the playoffs because he is the best playoff performer in all of basketball. But Kyle Kuzma will be the big performer for the Lakers as he finished with 21 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Anthony Davis, their elite power forward, would finish with 17 points and 12 rebounds in 30 minutes played. And then a big win for the Rockets, and James Harden would be their main performer as he finished with 39 points, 8 rebounds and 12 assists. He also added in 3 steals. He had 10 turnovers on the night. He also shot 11 for 19 from the field, 5 for 10 from 3, and he made all 12 of his free throws on the night. Big win for the Rockets as Russell Westbrook wasn't playing in this game. But with this win, the Rockets now move to a game and a half behind the Nuggets, as they are now situated with the same record as the Utah Jazz, and they're still a game and a half ahead of the 6th place Oklahoma City Thunder. So, one loss for them could actually be very drastic for them, but they were still able to get a very, very big win, a much-needed win for them to keep their spot in the West. So that's what was going on yesterday, just to give you a glimpse into what's going on today, because of course it is Friday. Friday basketball is always good. The Jazz play the Spurs at 1 o'clock. The Thunder play the Grizzlies on NBA TV, and the Grizzlies are still trying to hold on to that 8th place spot. The Magic play the 76ers on TNT. And the Celtics play the Raptors tonight on TNT. So that's what basketball is looking like. And right now I'm going to jump into what's been going on with hockey, because now with the hockey bubble, I'm definitely hooked. Like, hockey is most definitely lit now. Going on to the first game of the night, the Vancouver Canucks were able to shut out the Minnesota Wild completely, as they were able to beat them 3-0 in Game 3, as they now lead this series 2-1. Their goalie Jacob Markstrom, like I said, he had 27 saves, and he wouldn't let a single goal be scored. Big performance from them was Quinn Hughes, the defenseman who had all 3 assists for the Canucks. Very big game for them as they now move to 1 game. They can now clinch the series or whenever they play next. Also in the round robin, the Flyers were able to beat the Capitals 3-1. Big performance came from Kevin Hayes, the Philadelphia Flyers center, who had 3 assists. Well, he had all 3 assists on the night. He had an assist on all 3 scoring plays. That's the way I want to say it. Big game for him. Another big round-robin game happened between the Golden Knights and the Blues, as the Knights were able to beat them 6-4, scoring 3 goals in both the second and the third period. Big performances from first Alec Took, their right winger, he had 2 goals, and their defensive men, Shea Theodore, were finished with 2 goals for Vegas. As, like I said, with this win, it was a much-needed win for them as they win the round robin. And then another game for the East qualifiers, the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Maple Leafs went into overtime, but the Blue Jackets were able to pull it off, and now they have a 2-1 lead over the Toronto Maple Leafs. Their big performance came from Pierre-Luc Dubois. I think Pierre-Luc Dubois, their center, as he finished with 3 goals, a hat trick on the day, and yeah, much needed win for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Last game of the night came from, as the Calgary Flames completely shut out the Winnipeg Jets, beating them 4-0. Big performance, of course, from Calgary goalie Cam Talbot, and Calgary center Sam Bennett would finish with a goal and an assist as the Calgary Flames. They won their series 3-1 in Game 4, completely eliminating Winnipeg from continuing on. And just to look forward to what's going on with Friday hockey, first, the New York Islanders will take on the Panthers in Game 4 as the Islanders lead that series 2-1. The Predators take on the Coyotes in Game 4 as the Coyotes lead that series 2-1. The Penguins will take on the Canadiens in their Game 4 as the Montreal Canadiens lead that series 2-1. The Chicago Blackhawks are currently leading the Edmonton Oilers 2-1 as they seek to end this series today. Also, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Columbus Blue Jackets are playing their Game 4s. The Blue Jackets now lead that series 2-1. They're looking to clinch that series. And Vancouver's looking to close out the Wild as they lead that series 2-1 as they go into Game 4. So that's going on with hockey. Additionally, what's going on with sports, Justin Thomas, the Australian, I believe, is currently leading the PGA Championship as after day 1, he's hitting 5 under. It's going to be really curious to see what happens in day 2 before they start cutting people out. And also, American Brendan Todd is also hitting 5 under as they both are tied for the lead through day 1. And of course, this is gonna be going on all weekend. So I'll give you the updates as they go on. So with that said, I'm gonna start covering soccer as of tomorrow because the Champions League is being played today. It comes back today as Juventus takes on Lyon. As Lyon leads 1-0 on aggregates, and Lyon's playing at Juventus this time. And additionally, Manchester City is going to host Real Madrid as Manchester City currently leads 2-1 on aggregates. And on Saturday, you're going to see FC Barcelona take on Napoli in Barcelona as they're tied on aggregate 1-1. And Bayern Munich's going to take on Chelsea for their second leg as they currently lead that 3-0. But with that said, I really appreciate you guys for hearing me out. You ever get a chance, just get a chance to check out what's going on. There's a lot going on today. So I hope everyone's doing fine. And with that said, thanks for hearing me out. Peace out.